Hi, I'm Christian Peter, president of Dark Horse Commercial, and thanks for tuning in for yet another edition of the ultimate guide for Miami warehouse owners, how to sell for top dollar fast. Today, we're going to be talking about negotiating like a pro. Now, negotiating for top dollar for your warehouse does not happen without the ability to read buyers' motivations. What I always tell people is just like people think about residential warehouses, I'm sorry, residential real estate as location, location, location. When I'm looking at a buyer, it's always motivation, motivation, motivation. What is going to make them pay top dollar for your property? And oftentimes, it's not what you think. So we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But oftentimes, you can see from the way buyers negotiate, by the way they offer, and it's not always the initial offer. It's usually, and this is a little trade secret, something I've learned over the years, is that watch where they go for their second move. Okay. So for instance, seeing where their initial offer is, and then when you counter, watch where their next movement is. Because that next movement of where they came in at the initial offer to where they counter your counter, that is going to tell you the most about their motivation. Okay. In the 23 years that I've been in this business, the one thing that I've learned is watch not the first move, watch the second move. Let's talk about how to create leverage with multiple offers. Okay. I know it might sound like a broken record, but this is one of the most important things I've learned in my 2.5 decades in the business is that you have to leverage one buyer over another. You can create a bidding frenzy. You can create that auction mentality. I think I mentioned in a previous video, one thing we do to get as much buying activity for sellers that we represent is we will stack our showings one on top of the next. I've gotten full price offers in the parking lot because one of the people that was being shown the property overlapped with another, and they saw the other group of buyers, and they didn't want to miss out because this particular property was like a concrete plant, and they only had certain properties that fit the zoning and fit the industrial qualities for the land that were in the area they wanted to be in. They said we can't miss out. We have to have this. So the point is, there's certain things that you can do to trigger that FOMO, that fear of missing out, and that's what leads to multiple offers. Once you start to get multiple offers, okay, then it's how we pit them one against the next. What's very, very important to understand, though, is in order to get to the point where you get the buyer frenzy, in order to get to the point where you get the multiple offers, the property has to hit the market the first time around at the right price. Okay. Nobody wants yesterday's day old bread, right? Everybody wants something that's fresh and that's new. So again, you only get one chance to make a first impression. The best way to do that is set that price about 0 to 5% above what the market is selling for, right? If something sold a week or two ago for XYZ in your area of like kind, there's a pretty good chance that the market value is within about 5% of that. So make sure when you're pricing, you price it as close to that strike price as possible. That way, when it hits the market, everybody sees, oh, wait, here's an actual value. It's not pie in the sky like about 85 or 90% of the deals out there, of the offerings out there. That is how you create leverage with multiple offers by getting it priced right properly so we can get you the highest price possible. Let's talk about what terms matter more than price. What's interesting is so many people, and myself included, for many years, I used to think that price was the only thing that mattered to people. Now, what's interesting is for some folks, price has nothing. That's not the most important part. It might be seller financing. It might be longer close time because they're selling another property. It might be listen, if I can get in with a small deposit because I got my money tied up in another deal, it might be a contingency. It might be that they're selling another property. It could be a lot of things. It could be a financial contingency. It could be a zoning contingency. I've seen developers overpay simply because they wanted the seller to be able to keep the property off the market so no one else could grab it while they're figuring out if the zoning was going to work for their intended future use. So, believe it or not, there are some terms that matter more than price itself, which is how we get the most amount of money in your pocket as possible. And then finally, how to avoid getting shopped once under contract. There's nothing worse than knowing you left money on the table, right? No one wants to sell a property only to find out that the buyer had a same day closing. And next thing you know, you could have gotten another 500,000 or 600,000 or 800, whatever, $1 million for your property because they saw a property that they were able to take and flip it to somebody else. We are going to prevent that in the way we write your contract, that it's absolutely impossible for you to get your deal shopped. Because when someone shops a deal, what they do is they get the property, they get it under contract, and they start, as soon as they get under contract, they start running around and seeing if they can find someone to buy it. And next thing you know, they're either holding you up, tying you up with, unnecessarily asking for unnecessary extensions. And then next thing you know, and most time you don't find out until it's too late. But there are ways of avoiding that, and we make sure we protect you in that process. So thank you so much for tuning in. That's our short little lesson on negotiating like a pro. Some of the most important things. Hopefully this is giving you some things to think about so that when the time does come and it is right for you to start selling, how to position and how to look at things and how to consider different factors in the sales process. If you are at the point where you're curious in terms of what your property is worth in today's market, not what people are asking, what is actually selling, I'm more than happy to put together a broker opinion of value for you. If you just go to www.darkhorse-commercial.com, and when you land on our page, you'll say request valuation. Just click on the button on the landing page, and we'll go ahead and enter your name, email address, and we'll reach out to you, and we'll get that set up for you. And then we'll walk you through our strategic process, or what we call our strategic roadmap of what it looks like to get your property sold for you at top dollar. I look forward to seeing you in the next video or doing your BOV for you. Talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in.